Great to see you. No, I think
that'll be, it's going to be quite tight.
Oh, right. That's right. She came with a bird. That's right. That's right.
Really, the genesis for this massive project started as a tiny little whim, as so many things often do. It was back in '92 or so. We did the Buddy Rich Memorial Scholarship Show, and when Kathy invited me to do the show, of course, initially my response was terror. I thought, I can't do this. I have no idea. Talk about being out of your depth. But I didn't have a good excuse not to, and so I told Kathy, yeah, I'm interested. Let's go with it. And then she sent me the video of the previous show that had like Steve Gadd and Vinnie Colaiuta and Dave Weckl and all these guys, and I'm watching this going, what have I done? I can't do this. I really just had no background in it, but the challenge was so intriguing that I jumped at it. And then when it came to the live show, of course, on a thing like that where there were 6 different drummers playing and the stage changing and everything was out of control and the monitors were bad and I couldn't hear the horn players at all, and I'd made the mistake of learning the material by ear because I'm more used to that rather than using notation. So I was counting on certain oral cues, to find my place in the arrangement, and I couldn't hear them. So I just felt totally lost in limbo land. So I was a little depressed about it after the fact. So as time went on, and I thought, okay, I made myself feel better about it. I'll do it again. The next time I'll know what I'm up against, and I'll plan for it better, and I'll do a better job, and I'll be happy then. So I had that in the back of my mind, and the band went on to do Roll the Bones tour, and subsequent to that, we found out that one of the members of the band was going to be in the family way, so the tour would be ending a bit early, and I suddenly had 6 weeks of unexpected time. And I thought, well, the big band thing, what about that? Wouldn't you like to get back to that and redeem yourself? It's one of those like Hollywood quest for redemption kind of thing. So I started thinking about it, and I said, yeah, but if I could control the variables a little more, get it into the studio, and have a chance to play big band music under controlled circumstances, wouldn't that be good? My main exposure to Buddy had been really The Tonight Show all those years as a kid, and just seeing him play on there and being amazed. But of course, I can realize now in retrospect, I didn't have the understanding to even approach understanding what he was doing and how. And so it was like, wow, this guy's amazing and fast and all that, but that was about the limit of my understanding. And when I went into it, it made me understand, of course, the depth of Buddy's playing so much more when I had to learn the music and play it myself. So one thing led to another, and I contacted Kathy Rich at this point and suggested the idea to her. I said, don't you think somebody should do a tribute record to the music of Buddy? Never mind his drumming, but some of the great arrangements that he commissioned for the band. And again, referring to The Tonight Show, I still remembered some of the tunes that I'd heard as a kid, some of them appearing on this record too. Dancing Men and Mercy, Mercy, Mercy were things that I remembered all those years from seeing and hearing them once on television. So I thought there was something in the strength of the music that could endure and should really be celebrated. So with all of this, I went to Kathy and said, and she agreed, yeah, I thought it would be great. So I said at the outset that it began as a whim. It was just a chance for me just to play all I wanted was to play some big band music in the studio, That was really where it came from. But of course, to make that possible, I had to put this huge wave into motion. And of course, it soon far exceeded any expectations of complexity, difficulty, stress, anxiety, all of that. But when it came down to the magic hour, of course, the making, when those 2 weeks in the studio, it was when the reward came. 2 drummers coming in a day, and I'll never forget those 2 weeks in New York at the power station, walking in every morning, so excited. What's going to happen today? I had wanted to choose traditional swing stuff and Cottontail because it was a Duke Ellington song, and to me, Duke Ellington is the great genius of American music, to my mind, so I thought it was kind of nice I could do a tribute to Buddy and to the Duke at the same time, and plus I really liked the arrangement. Again, it had a lot of really well-crafted parts to it. The whole solo section was really good, and a lot of nice little accents and syncopations for the drummer to hit.
Neil?
We're coming out 2 beats short. I think we need 2 more beats of drums.
It's 1 beat early.
Yeah, Chuck says 2.
Andy, where was Chuck? No, he's in the booth. It's 1 or 2.
It's 1 or 2 beats short.
Sounds right. You know, I just sort of expect everybody else to kick in with you. Yeah.
It's not me. It's you guys.
Would it be easier if we just took a beat out?
I think so, yeah.
Maybe we could just, do 7 3/4.
We could try it once?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. With the whole band? Cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Neil, as long as you make a good strong downbeat on that cymbal the way you did, you
yeah,
can get a visual on it, and then it'll help.
We're smoking now.
In essence, it was Cottontail was really the reason the record was made in a selfish sort of sense, because it was my way of getting a chance to play big band music in the studio. So, in the sense that it all hinges on that track and my ability to play it. In so many ways, I was the least qualified drummer, but I was the producer, so they had to let me play.
That was good.
Well, the first time I heard Buddy Rich was on an album that my father had. It was the West Side Story album. And those arrangements and his playing, the power, the speed, the interpretation of that music, those charts, it blew me away. And I think I wore the grooves off of that album, man. And every time I'd hear that he was on TV, you know, I'd make sure that I was sitting in front of that TV when the moment came. And it's just definitely one of the most exciting drummers that I've seen.
I liked the drums, and I started studying. And when I heard Buddy, I said, "This is really what I want to do." You know, they used to be the Tommy Dorsey band, and they used to do a remote. Those are the old days when you'd turn the radio on and you could hear like Tommy Dorsey and Jimmy Dorsey and Benny Goodman, and one after another. Those days are gone. But I heard him play this couple of things with Dorsey, like "Well Get It" and those things. He'd play this 16-bar drum intro. It just knocked me out. I thought it was great.
Gretsch had a series of like, I hate the words, but they used it a lot in that time. Drum battles, where there's one record that I was lucky enough to come across with Buddy and Max, and I found that the personalities that came through and the material was so unique that it made me investigate a little bit more what was happening during their real prime period, you know, around the 50s and 60s, when they were really, really hitting it. I would not be going in the direction or traveling in the direction that I'm traveling musically now had it not been for that, in combination with other things.
I heard him play on an album that was called Krupa versus Rich. And I don't remember all the names of the songs, but he played some stuff with brushes on that thing that was, I would try and just copy exactly what he did. And then I had heard him before that, I think, with the Dorsey Band. And then, you know, for a while I didn't hear about him, and then all of a sudden I heard this thing on the radio, West Side Story. And he had put the band back together again and was just, I mean, he just had, seemed like he had just kept on improving.
The first record I heard Buddy on was Big Swing Face, and man, it was just, that was just amazing. You know, I would practice along with that record, and you know, I just, you try to bring yourself up to the level. That's basically it. I mean, I was like a kid. I was like, 13, 14, trying to play along with this record, wailing away frantically, perhaps in futility, but anyway, I was trying to meet up to the level.
Smitty Smith was a drummer that I didn't really know a lot about until we worked together on the scholarship show. And then I was, of course, as anybody would be with exposure to Smitty's playing, incredibly impressed. It's interesting in a player of that caliber to start looking at why they do what they do, and so the explorations I did into Buddy's mind. Well, why did he do this? Why did he do that? Well, I see. Okay, it's that everything has a rationale. So that's something that impressed me about Smitty's playing. And it seemed to be that he could just sit down and effortlessly pour out a perfectly conceived and rationally constructed framework for the tune. Deceptively effortless approach, because when you start to analyze what he's playing, it's far from effortless. For mere mortals like ourselves, it might be effortful.
Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Oh, I'll just start playing.
Hey.
Why not? I'll just start playing. Here we go.
when I was a young kid, my dad turned me on to jazz, and of course one of the things records he bought me was some of the Buddy Rich records. And I was like, there was no way I could even emulate or try to copy what he was doing.
Like kids, you couldn't really figure out Buddy's chops, you didn't really know where it came from. Now I kind of know, but I was starting out on the set, it was beyond belief, most of it, How many notes are there in that?
For me, in that era, sort of when I was growing up and listening to Dixieland and big band jazz and swing, and actually even 30s jazz, nobody really quite had that crisp sound and attack of the snare drum that Buddy had. So he suddenly became my idol. He was like the man that I used to just listen to all the time. I used to go out and get the records and trying to play to them, basically.
A kid, 13 years old, and you're looking at this record and listening to it and going like, wow, this is amazing. You're looking at the old Ludwig catalog, seeing his set, and I used to try to trace it and copy it on paper. Every little thing, the logo, his name, the Buddy Rich and all that stuff. And then you grow up listening, waiting for the next record.
Look at the pictures on the records, set up my drums exactly the same way, And big influence, very big influence.
I started playing when I was 8. By the time I was 13, I was well into playing to Buddy Rich records.
And back then, I used to think I was doing a pretty good job of playing along with the records. But years later, when I did the Buddy Rich tribute at the Ritz, when I got the tapes and actually had to learn some of those tunes, I went through the same kind of process, playing along with the records and trying to play Buddy's parts. And then I realized how far off I really was.
The first time I saw Buddy Rich was, I must have been about maybe 13 years old, and he was on the TV in England. And I'd never seen anybody quite as powerful as this guy. He had so much energy. He would just play and play and play and play and play.
And you couldn't help but be half intimidated and half excited. And if you were a drummer, it was the challenge of trying to figure out what it was either too much, or it was definitely something that you just had to do. So for me, in my young years, between the ages of 12 and 16 or 17, pretty much all I did was listen to and figure out Buddy Rich things. So I would, I guess, if there's one drummer in the history of the instrument that was the main influence on me, it was most certainly Buddy.
The thing with Dave is he's kind of takes a religious approach to the drums, and he's the kind of guy you can ask deeply technical questions, and those are the kind of things that he thinks, lives, and breathes, and eats and drinks every day.
Yeah, but how did you just got it going?
Yeah, because you can't do it slow. It doesn't work slow.
See, I tried to start slow and build up.
Yeah, you can't. You gotta do this.
He is very much a drummer's drummer in that sense, like among the high priests of drumming, because he's so devoted to it, so religious about it, and so devoted to improving himself and practicing. And it's an inspirational thing, again, of the non-competitive inspiration. You hear a great musician like that, and it encourages you to go and practice. tell me when he was a kid, he would take his parents' record player, and put a Buddy Rich album on there and slow it down to 16 so he could figure out all the licks, and he would learn all the complicated arrangements for the band and every little, beat that Buddy played by that method of the old slowing down the record player. And we were laughing at what can you do now? If you have cassettes or CDs, there's no way to do that, and it's really a lost opportunity, because I certainly remember myself and all the young musicians doing that, taking the record player and slowing it down. What are they playing? What are they saying? What's that beat?
I think it should stop. The first 4 bars. Yeah, because as soon as you hear right after
Mercy, Mercy, Mercy was actually another one that I remembered from The Tonight Show. Again, just saw once, how many years ago, 25 years ago or something, and it struck me so hard then. And I knew the song as a pop song, too, by the Buckinghams. And another one written by Joe Zawinul, too, which is a strange chain of connections, but so it was. And then the next time I heard that also was on the previous scholarship video with Dave Weckl playing it. So not only did I want to have Dave Weckl as part of the record because I admired his playing so much, but I really wanted him to play that tune because I liked the way he played it a lot.
I saw Buddy Rich play only once in Chicago at a club called the Black Hawk. When I think it was around 1972 when Mahavishnu was passing through Chicago, and we were able to get some tickets on an off night, and so I was able to check out the band.
It was great because that was the first time I had seen him live, and boy, he was blazing. He was leading that band and kicking that music, man. It was a lot of fun.
I was probably about 18 years old when I saw him play at Ronnie Scott's club. I went and saw him play there quite a few times, and he was really an impressive guy.
The sax player of my dad's band, the alto baritone player, he was a real Buddy Rich big band freak as well, real fan. He took me to go and see my first Buddy Rich concert, which was at a place in England called Hemel Hempstead Pavilion. And I know a lot of the people in the band remember that place very, very well. I used to play there with my father, so I knew like the stage manager and all the people there, and there I was, my first big band to see Buddy Rich, you know. And it was an unbelievable experience. I had no idea what was going on.
I remember when I was a teenager, I went to a club, I don't remember the name of it, on Long Island, and went to see Buddy play with the Buddy Rich Big Band, and I was so awestruck by this man's talent and phenomenal technique. We all talk about the kind of technique this man had, and I got to watch it really close up, and that performance and that moment has stuck with me my whole life as a barometer from which I tried to gauge my own playing, and I hope someday I can measure up to it. I doubt it very much, but it was just a wonderful experience. Well, I can't remember the exact first time that I ever saw Buddy Rich play, but I was pretty young. I was probably like 12 or 13 or something, and I remember my parents brought me to see him and his band quite a few times. I lived in the Boston area, and he seemed to be playing there all the time, and I was just really floored by his playing, and to me it just became the standard of what I thought a great drummer was.
The last time I saw him was at the Bottom Line. I took my parents to see him, and it was fairly close to when he, passed away, but it was always an experience.
Kenny, again, a drummer I hadn't met before, although we had several mutual friends in common. For this project, it seemed that, again, he had no background in the music any more than I did, but he has a really deep background in music, of course, well-trained symphonic percussionist, and one of the most in-demand quick session players, which is a particularly demanding role to play. So all those, of course, spoke for his ability to do the job, but it's interesting that his background is in rock so much and a bit of country lately, and that's certainly what he's known for, is John Mellencamp more than anything. And yet, like me, he wanted to go as far away from that as he could. Given this opportunity, he went into the deepest swing, which is brave, and crazy to do, but it was what both of us felt compelled to do. It would have been easier for us to come in and pick one of the rock style charts and play our thing the way we do it, but it's not how we perceived the challenge. So he came in, of course, very apprehensive, but a very excited guy, and Kenny is a ball of energy at all times. And I thought to myself that Kenny did a great job of walking into an unfamiliar style of music and playing it in a very, not only a convincing way, but very exciting too. I think the way he plays and the sound of his touch on that is really well done, and a tribute to rock drummers everywhere.
one of the coolest things about this project is that every drummer I've heard has come in here very humbled by, you know, what am I doing here? This is like, you know, this is an honor. And everybody is fantastic at what they do. Everybody's made a name for themselves. The beautiful thing about the project is that it's made everybody learn something and grow. You know, it's made us all want to, you know, to try to do a good job. So we all had to practice. We all had to think about our playing. And that's fantastic. It's a gift to us. That's what this experience is. It's given us a chance to really grow and learn something, and it stems back to Buddy Rich.
In 1959, I was this little black kid that was in Manny's music shop buying or obtaining my very first set of drums with my mom and dad at about 15 to 20 minutes after the place closed. And Danny was the one that sold the drums and to me, and he said, "Come here, I want to introduce you to Buddy Rich." And we were going up, this was in the old Manny's, and we were going up the stairs, and he said, "You want him to sign your drum?" And I said, "Yeah." And I went to give him the drum, and it hit my knee, and he went to try to grab it, and it fell and bounced down the stairs, and I still have that snare. It's a 1959 Ludwig Super Sensitive with a dent in it that sounds great when we record.
At the end of the concert, the stage manager managed to sort of get me backstage to meet the man. So I was like, I must have been like 12 or 13. I was clutching my record, Mercy, Mercy, you know. Went into his dressing room and you know, said, "Hello, sir, could you sign this?" I said, "Yeah." I signed it. Said, "There you go, bud."
But he was a sweetheart to me, and the only time I met him, I was a very raw young recruit to the percussion industry in about 67 or 68. And the band I was in, Yes, rock group, was a cover band at the time, you know, and we did all kinds of strange cover versions of tunes. One of which was West Side Story, which of course was Rich's, one of Buddy's great things. And somebody at the record label played him our version of West Side Story, and you know, it has it, and off we go, you know. He was gracious enough to make nice comments. He'd finally found a British drummer that could do a decent role. That boy's got good hands, you know. So the record label got excited and said, "Well, why don't you go up there, you know, when he's next through London and interview him, and, you know, write the results out for the paper." I thought, hey, I can earn $50 on the side here. This is big money as a journalist. More money in journalism than in drumming. So I duly went up there and sat on the edge of, you know, a very expensive Louis XIV chair in the Dorchester Hotel. And Buddy reclined back here and viewed me, the 17-year-old. And we talked loosely about jazz and about money, about music. And it was a great educational time. I shall always remember him.
He invited me on his tour bus, you know. And he said, "Hey, I know who you are," you know, and he talked about, you know, he actually had heard some things that I had done, and it was the gas, you know. Somebody that you admire like that, you know, when they know what you're doing, it does blow your mind, you know. And we had a great talk. It was Buddy and myself, and my dad was with me too. So we hung out on the bus and, you know, snacked and drank and just rapped about drums and music, and it was a lot of fun. And I feel fortunate to have had that time to talk and hang with Buddy.
When I was 17 years old and playing in New York at a nightclub around the corner from the great Paramount Theater where Buddy was headlining, I broke my one and only pair of drumsticks and had to go up and knock at the door at the suggestion of an older musician and ask Mr. Rich, please, with quaking voice and a lot of pimples, if he could please loan me a pair of drumsticks. You can imagine it was pretty embarrassing. Buddy treated me like a prince. He sent the band boy upstairs with a package that he came down with, and it was 25 pair of sticks. And the Buddy, of course, denied this in later years and said, "You're going to kill my image." But the truth of it is that he was a very generous and warm-hearted man.
Ed was the first drummer in to record, so I called him a test pilot. He called himself the guinea pig.
Sure, that's right. That's it.
But Ed came in with such an experience in the music, such an experience in being flexible.
Dave, make 181 a quarter note.
We just got done doing it.
Thank you. It's redundant to hold on to it. Good.
Yes.
Great minds with a single thought.
Ba,
Ba, beep, ba, 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 pichika, bakugo, kita, ah.
Sometimes on the Tonight Show, he'd back up James Brown, and then he'd be backing up Ella Fitzgerald next. You know, he had to have that level of versatility and sensitivity to what an artist needed from a drummer and from the music. At the beginning, it was just he was an amazingly fast drummer that I saw on TV. And then when I studied the music to learn it, to play it, I understood the depth then of the conception of arrangement and song construction. And when I heard Buddy take a 4-bar break, the way he divided those bars was like no one else. And it was, you had to get inside his brain to see the way he thought about it, to be able to hope, to be able to have a hope of emulating it, or even understanding how to approach it your own way. You know, you had to get that deeply into it. And then the more I got to know his music with doing the tribute record, and I was exposed to a lot that I hadn't heard before, and so many different varieties of his work. This level of musicianship and sheer musicality is what Buddy's reputation ought to rest upon, and perhaps it does to some degree. You know, anybody who was just a fast soloist would not make that kind of impact on the world of music. Buddy is so deserving of admiration, you know, along the way. That everything I've learned about him personally and musically just increases my admiration for the man and for his work.
The sound of the drums, the way he played the band, his technique.
He got a very crisp sound, very clean. Everything was clean.
It was in a place all by itself.
What was great about him, too, he could play very light with the brushes, but he could do, you know, very fine brush work, and then he could turn around and just, you know, pull out all the stops, you know, with the sticks, and It was something else.
Really, really special, really unique. I never, ever in my life ever thought I could ever play like that, and I'm here to say that I can't.
You know, Buddy makes everything sound really easy. Then you come to play and it's really different.
Just seeing him up there on the stage was really something. He used to have this, push that band along there, you know. He just really had a thing. That bass drum, that 400 bass drum used to just drive that band. Probably drive him crazy.
Buddy had tremendous endurance. You got to realize he's been playing since he was a little boy, and he really had all the chops in the world. You know, he had total control of the drum.
As a sort of lesser evolved player, I notice more of the obvious, just like the speed and the power on the drum set. And as I evolve as a player, I appreciate more of the subtleties. Still like, the physical technique, the ease that he played the drums with, but also the energy level, how he played with the band, how he really set the band up and played for the music. And he was a great musician as well as being an amazing drummer.
Buddy Rich individually was not as important to me as Buddy Rich, the musical entity, which meant the whole band and the band that he drove, or the music that he presented. And that to me was the ultimate, because I always looked at if I had to hear the drummer in the band, then something was wrong with the band. But if I heard the band and the band was smoking, then to me that was the ultimate, and the drummer was doing the right job.
As a drummer, seeing a drummer as a band leader like that was pretty impressive as well. It was he always had such a mean look on his face when he used to play. He just had this real sort of not like everybody in the band sort of thing. But he was a great player. He was very, 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 very impressive.
There's that saying, you show me a certain personality and I'll show you that personality in the drumming, the instrument that you're playing. And his style of drumming and his personality were one.
He developed, obviously, through the years. He just played that band beautifully.
Buddy's playing is obviously centered around technique and his charisma. I mean, the one thing that nobody can dispute is that guy's left hand was amazing. It was like his left hand was like Fred Astaire. It just tap danced through the song, accenting with the band, but yet another melody. It was just like a whole nother little melody going on, dancing along. And until you try to imitate this thing, you have no idea how difficult it is. It's not just the notes. It's the dynamics. It's the accents, the musicality of it all. It's almost like a tap dancer. The subtlety, like you're watching the feet go, and you hear all this stuff going on, but you can't put your finger on it. He had that just in his left hand alone, not to mention what his right hand was doing. And his feet, I mean, he could suddenly do something with his right foot that would just slay you. He would keep time, with the ride cymbal and the hi-hat, which was, the law of the land with regard to, swing. But that left hand would just play this incredible role of playing with the band, supporting the band, improvising. And the thing that I was also impressed about from listening to his records recently is that how aware he was of what everybody was doing. Just the way he was almost ahead of everybody. He was always on top, always pushing, always there, always like, I know what you're doing, I know what you're doing, I know what you're doing, and I'm doing this, and follow this, but watch this, I know what you're doing. And he always had an idea of what was going on. He was ahead of everybody.
And he had a way of making everybody really play in a cohesive way, which was very unique, again, in jazz, because even though there were many, many, many musicians and individuals who could sit down and play all kinds of patterns and stuff, there were very, very few who could play and support the band.
Just a remarkable player, remarkable player.
He set a standard that's so high, it's pretty impossible to touch it, I think. for anybody to touch it.
He played better as he got older, and I told him this a few times. Yeah, we were at Blue Note. I said, "Man, you're sounding so good." He said, "I'm playing all the same old stuff I did with Dorsey." I said, "No, you're not." And 5 minutes later, he said, "You really think so?" He was very serious about it, you know.
It's not just about his playing, for me. I mean, you know, it's about everything that Buddy has been through. It's about, you know, like about what New York was when he grew up playing. You know, what this city was years ago, you know what I mean? I don't think it's that now. It's not bad now, it's different. But you know, it was sort of like glamorous back then. It was exciting in a way that when I was a kid, you know, it was sort of like the end of that era, you know what I mean? And the way he lived was in his playing.
Love for Sale was one tune that I hadn't heard before of Buddy's, and I knew Steve was coming in to do that, and was excited about that. And there was an interesting event too, that Steve's tech people came in the night before to set up his drums, and Paul, we had a few minutes left in the studio, so Paul Northfield, the engineer, and myself were there, and I said, "Well, do you want me to, you know, go hit stuff so you can at least get the mics working and stuff ready for when Steve comes in the morning?" And I went out and just was hitting Steve's drums and that, and they sounded so dead and awful. You know, I thought, how did he play these things? Of course, Steve comes in and sits down at them, and they become a musical instrument because they are made from him. It's amazing how individual a set of drums can be, that one person on them sounds like a voice, another person on them, it sounds like a wreck. But in any case, this Love for Sale soon became my total favorite. Still remains one of probably my total favorite of all of them. It's a beautiful arrangement, so beautifully arranged, and melodically I love it. Just everything about it, and the way Steve played it, it's just that straight ahead. It's a swing beat with all the little beats left out, so he just plays it in a linear way, and he's, again, talking of masters, reached a level of mastery of the craft that he can imply notes. And this is a beautiful thing, you know. The listener hears and feels something that isn't played. He's just playing a straight quarter note beat, but the listener absolutely feels the little notes in between because they're so skillfully implied, you know. This was beautifully played. It's a beautiful sounding track, a great arrangement, lovely solos in it, a great little drum break that Steve does towards the end. To me, it's just a masterpiece.
I knew Buddy for approximately about 40 or 50 years. I used to tell him that God would put somebody on this earth to play better than anybody else, and he chose you. He was a very complex man in many ways, and I won't go into that. But I think the thing that really was the most amazing to me, after sitting next to him night after night after night, we were in Ohio, and we were playing four-wall handball, and Buddy ran into the wall to break a fall, or running into the wall and stuck this hand out. And what happened was he said, "Oh, I hurt my hand." And I said, "Oh," I lived with him in a room with him so long that I thought he was a little bit of a hypochondriac, because when we'd room together, he'd say, "I don't feel good, I'm going to die in the morning." I said, "Listen, if you die, I'll make you a nice funeral." I said, "I promise you, but I got to get some sleep." I said, "You know, I run the band, I'm the straw boss, the bus is coming, I got to take a few hours of sleep. I can't hear your tales right now." And I could talk to him like that because he knew and he respected me. So basically what happened was, I said to him, "Go down and get some heat, and your brother and I'll finish the game. Mickey and I'll finish the game." And he came back up and he said, "You know, I feel like it's sprained." So we went to the doctor, and the doctor said it was sprained, and he put sort of a cast on it. So what happened was, he started to play with one hand. He was getting the feel of it, and he just was trying it, and just trying it. And then we finished in Ohio. We had about 4 days off. We went back to New York, and comes to pass that he had broken his arm in 3 places. And he had a big wooden cast, or not a cast, you know, that thing they make out of plaster. And we opened the Apollo Theater, and we were one of the few white bands to ever play there. It was us, Charlie Barnett, maybe Boyd Rayburn, and Woody Herman. And he was a king up there. And Buddy sat very high when he played, and you couldn't tell. He played so fast that the average layman couldn't see if he played with one hand or 2 hands. And we opened with a tune called the Karaoke. I remember it very well. It was kind of like a tempo like that. And he started playing with one hand. And when he got down to announce the act, they saw that the hand was in a cast. And it was bedlam up there. Every drummer thought that he put his hand in the cast to show he could play with one hand. And it was like a freak. They said the freak is up there. And it was wild. I mean, it was just wild. And the next week, we opened at the Paramount Theater, which was the place to play. And Bob Whiteman, who was the managing director, came up to see Buddy at the Apollo. He said, "I don't care if your hand's broken, if it isn't broken, you just play that way." So he had me call Ludwig at the time. He got 2 bass drums, and he just sat with the broken arm and just played 2 bass drums with his feet without any other drums, like a tap dancer, because he was a great tap dancer. He could just do that. It was like nothing. He never practiced. He never studied. It was like child's play to him. I mean, I was in awe of it. I couldn't understand it. Now, you know, you've watched athletes. You've watched pitchers or catchers. Now, when they hurt their arm or they injure their fingers, it takes you about a month to get back into shape. I tell you the truth. I mean, this was mind-boggling to me. The day he took his hand out of the cast, he played with that left hand. It was like it was never broken. I just looked at him. I said, I don't know what this. I can't even describe it right now. I can't even talk about it, because it was just unbelievable. I mean, he played those. You know, his left hand was as strong as his right hand. I mean, they were same. I just couldn't believe it. And I just said again, I said, "Man," I said, "God gave you something." Or I said, "I don't care if it's Zen, Buddha, God, whoever you want. He put you on this earth to do this thing, and you just could do it."
He was a guy, again, that was high on my list of, you know, the dream team. And fortunately, he was able to do it and came in and did a superb job. And this particular one was a piece that he had arranged for big bands specifically for this project. And again, a guy who was gleeful, like childish in the studio, a kid's enthusiasm to have the rest of the band so enthusiastic about his piece. And as he said at the time, these guys could either kill it or breathe life into this thing. You know, he was so grateful that the other players in the band got totally behind it and gave all of their commitment to it and made it happen because they knew, you know, therein hangs the difference.
Are we phrasing it the way you... Okay.
So he was very thrilled about it too, and it's nice to hear that and to see that level of enthusiasm from the other musicians. Nobody was blasé. Everyone was so happy to be there and to be playing the music that they genuinely loved. There was an immediate sense of shared purpose, an immediate sense of shared affection for the spirit of those musical values that Buddy stood for.
Everybody looks real unhappy. Completely unhappy.
It felt good. Want to hear it?
I come not only as a drummer but as a writer, and for me writing is every bit as important, and it's a complete thrill. I would have paid the price of admission anyway to have the band rehearse the chart that I offered, let alone get it recorded as well. And as we speak, 3 hours ago, that sounded absolutely terrible and mostly unplayable.
Sounds terrible when you sing it, Chuck.
In the 3 hours with the band, they transformed it and made the composition in chart just sound better than I could possibly have imagined.
Yeah, Neil. Really good.
Yeah.
That was the one.